Welcome to this week's edition of Coach Prep. Coach Don and I are working on Zoom. We got a really fun topic for you. We're going to talk about catcher/pitcher relationships and the importance of how those two players work together. Before we get into that, though, let's first off talk about patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. We would love for you to become a patron. If you see value in what we're doing, if you want to see the podcast continue into the future, please become a patron. We've got a great group that's been supporting us. We've added a few people here in the last couple of weeks. We definitely need more people to get on board. Cost of the podcast are not going down. The expenses for all the different services and things that we need to keep the podcast rolling, unfortunately, are going just like everything else in the economy. So if you're in a position where you can help us, we would certainly love the support. Again, patreon.com/everythingfastpitch. So Don, catcher/pitcher relationships. Let's jump into this one because I think this is one of the key things. When teams are successful, I think these two players work well together. I think when teams are struggling, that sometimes you don't have to look any further than these combinations to figure out where some of the problems might be.
No, I think that's kind of exciting, Tori. And again, when we start pointing fingers back and forth, we're at that point where the wheels are falling off and we've got chaos. As a catcher, I thought that, having that pitcher-catcher relationship was always a special thing because in the heat of battle, in the middle of a game, it's really important, I think, for catchers to have a good understanding of what things might be beneficial for that particular pitcher and to have some consistency in the language that we use, whether it's shorten up your stride, whether it's finish with your direction with your arm, whatever it might be. If we can be consistent with what they're used to hearing, then I think that that's a lot more comforting and beneficial for them in the heat of battle. And all that means is that as a catcher, we've got to be mindful or conscious or be listening and to be a part of those conversations that are had in practice. Maybe it's at training, pitching lessons, things like that, where they're tinkering on things and trying to fine tune and create a good, comfortable environment for them to be productive as pitchers. So as a catcher, if we can be conscious of those things, we can save a trip to the mound or our coach calling timeout to go out there and say, hey, take a breath. Let's make sure we're deliberate with our stride or whatever it is that that we feel might be helpful in that moment. And that could be just all it takes. And when we do have that comfort and a good relationship between the pitcher and catcher, I think that will go a long ways with confidence and things like that, for them to know that if they get on that drop ball, that I'm going to be there to block it for them. So Let's get on that drop ball. Let's really push it. The changeup, we're not going to miss our changeup up in the zone. If we miss our changeup, it's going to be down, and I'm going to block it for you. So let's throw that amazing changeup that you've got. But it's definitely a thing, and just like you said at the beginning, it could be something that's a huge benefit. Or if we're not seeing eye to eye, and if we're not, gelling and jiving together, that is going to be a difference maker, and going to be something that kind of initiates the destruction of that day anyway, and we're going to have to work hard to get it back. But what kind of things are you thinking?
Why I thought this was such a great topic when Stan suggested it, because I keep seeing things that tell me that an awful lot of people, whether it's coaches or parents or pitchers or both or all three, that don't always understand how important this relationship is. And just some things that I see that tell me that people don't get it is dads sitting on a bucket catching their daughters warming up before a game. Dads going down in between innings to warm their daughters up, sitting on a bucket while their pitcher daughter's getting ready to go into a game. Coaches are not creating enough situations in practice where the pitchers and catchers are working together on a regular basis. Too many coaches that are so quick to just micromanage everything that the catcher can or should be doing that they take the power or the ability of the catcher to really make an impact. They diminish it, or in some cases, they totally take it away. I get the whole, somebody from the dugout calling pitches idea, but I also think that there's things that a pitcher and catcher who are really working well together can still be on top of. And you touched on that, quite a bit with the mechanical part of it, but also from a strategic part of it. Whatever pitch is working great that day, that the catcher's going to know for sure that that's working if she's got the relationship with the pitcher to keep encouraging it. And then maybe the two of them are having that discussion with whoever's calling pitches to make sure that we stick with the things that are working well or steer away from some of the things that might not be working so well that day. But I've seen, without a doubt, I think the most clear-cut example of how powerful this relationship could be. Way back when I was coaching at Parkside, I had the twin sisters that were a pitcher-catcher combo and had tremendous success in the high school realm. Now, back then, travel ball was not as big a deal, but I'm sure they would have been great in travel ball if they played a lot of travel ball too. They had a great relationship, did a great job in the college setting because the catcher and pitcher combo was so ingrained in them. They worked so well together that they could have heart-to-heart discussions. They could give tips, they could give pointers, or they could just jump right on somebody's tail and say, hey, you need to work harder on this. You need to suck it up. You need to, to do better. I can remember one day Billy walking into the dugout having struggled for an inning, and before anybody else could say anything to her, her sister was right there, who was her catcher, telling her things that she needed to work on and basically telling her to just shut up, suck it up, and do better. And sometimes I think you need to have a strong enough relationship where some of that stuff can happen. But again, we're not creating enough opportunities for pitchers and catchers to get to know each other well enough for them to even have that kind of relationship or that kind of trust. And every time I watch a dad sitting on a bucket while two or three dads side by side and the catcher sitting in the dugout doing nothing pregame. Now, I understand they get tired and all that kind of stuff, but they should catch some pitches. I mean, there's no way in the world you can tell me that we're developing it or that we value the pitcher-catcher relationship if the pitcher's getting ready to pitch and she's getting ready to pitch to somebody who's going to now be sitting in the stands or sitting in the dugout. It just doesn't make any sense to me at all.
No, I like what you're saying about that, Tori, because every pitch that you get to see as a catcher, you're evaluating, whether it's something I can sell as a strike or whether it's something that I need to be quick to block. And to identify that sooner is a huge deal in a real competitive game. And that's something that you acquire with reps. And if you're not getting those reps in pregame or in warm up and those types of things, then, I think that we're not quite as strong as we could be. And like you said as well, for the pitcher to be viewing what they're going to see in a game, I think is a lot different than dad on the bucket. Fine, and we need it, and that's important too. But, I think that for catchers to go to a pitching lesson and hear the language and the lingo that pitching coach uses with them, or that, and dad too, or mom, whoever's catching her all the time, would also have a good, strong understanding of what kind of verbiage is being said. And you do get to learn when it's appropriate to say that. If their pitch is up, we need to shorten up on our stride to get that pitch back down, or whatever it might be in that moment that they're having an issue with. If you can get them out of it in one pitch, that's great. But if it takes us a lot longer because we don't have that concept or that ability to help correct really quickly like that, then we're not going to be as strong a unit as we could be. And I mean, it's something too for catchers that are out there that they need to earn that respect by, digging and working and being proper in the feedback that we're giving. We're not just bossing someone around. We're, right, trying to be helpful, and we're back there digging, getting dirty and blocking and working really hard to sell borderline pitches and doing all this stuff for our pitchers and our team. I think that goes a long way in buying respect, or earning respect for our group. And once we get that, then, what we share with them, I think will be absorbed a lot more comfortably. So absolutely. Yeah, it's a process, and coaches, I think, can inspire it too, Tori, like you were saying, if we're complimenting how hard the catchers are working for the pitchers and the group back there and trying to help build up that confidence in the person that's back behind the plate, then they become a little bit of a stronger piece of the group. So, and we want that. We want them to be kind of that pillar back there that is stable for the team. But yeah, it's a building process for sure.
Well, and I think the reason this was such an important topic today is it's a relationship that we have to foster. It's something that we have to build. If we don't have it on our team is at some point in time going to be less than they could be because we don't have a strong pitcher-catcher relationship. And for the people that are going to, start typing up the email before they even get done listening to this podcast to tell me how crazy I am because the poor catcher can't catch all these pitches, then either she needs to get in better shape or we need to have more than one catcher. It's just that simple. If we have so little catching depth, or our catcher's in such bad shape that she can't catch some pitches before a game, we got a bigger problem. We don't need to worry about pitcher-catcher relationship because we got a catcher problem or an attitude problem from the coaching staff on down. So, to me, it's really pretty simple. We have to develop this relationship. We have to let it develop, and all the good things that you talked about, Don, with the trust and the consistency of performance and all that other stuff will come from that. If we don't foster it, if we don't create it, we're going to pay the price for it. There's going to be a day where I'm sitting on the bucket calling pitches and my poor pitcher can't throw that pitch and I have no idea because pitcher and catcher don't even know each other. The catcher can't tell me anything useful and the pitcher doesn't want to tell me the truth because she wants to stay in the game. So I think we got to help develop that pitcher-catcher relationship. We're going to be a whole lot stronger program. So that's going to wrap up this edition of Coach Prep. Please make sure you go to patreon.com/everythingfastpitch, become a patron. Go to the fastpitchprep.com website, order your Square Cuts training discs there. They're $49.95 a dozen. You also have access to the YouTube channel and the blog post. There's tons of information for you there on the fastpitchprep.com website. Send us your questions, ideas, comments, and Player of the Week nominations for the Everything Fast Pitch podcast at either everythingfastpitch@gmail.com or fastpitchprep@gmail.com. So for Coach Don McKinley and our producer Stan Lewis, this is Coach Torrey. Thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again next week.